For my service project, I volunteered to lead the Walton High School Sea Perch Robotics program. In this presentation, I will reflect on how this experience demonstrated servant leadership in action. I will explain why I selected this opportunity, describe how I served and for how long, apply Robert Greenleaf's growth test to evaluate impact, identify servant leadership skills I practice, compare this experience to T.W. Lewis's 4 W's of Christian philanthropy, and share the significant takeaways that shaped my leadership perspective. This project was more than volunteering hours. This was an opportunity to intentionally live out servant leadership principles in a real and meaningful context, in a community that I love, teaching what I love. I selected the Sea Perch Robotics program because it aligns closely with both my professional role as a geometry teacher and my leadership values. Many of the students in this program struggle academically in traditional classroom settings. However, when they are given hands-on challenges like building and troubleshooting underwater robots, something shifts. They become engaged, focused, and capable. I intentionally chose this opportunity because servant leadership requires proximity. Greenleaf reminds us that leadership begins with the desire to serve others' highest needs. For these students, those needs are confidence, perseverance, and the belief in their own ability. I wanted to invest time where growth could occur, not just academic growth, but personal growth. I volunteered for over 20 hours directly mentoring sea perch students during design, construction, and testing phases of their underwater robots. My role was not to fix problems for them, but to guide them through the problem-solving process. When motors failed or wiring didn't function correctly, I asked questions instead of taking over. I encouraged students to identify possible causes, test solutions, and reflect on outcomes. I also reinforced teamwork by reminding them that collaboration is part of engineering. This was hands-on, relational service. Servant leadership emphasizes empowering others rather than demonstrating expertise. Spears in 2010. My goal was not perfection of the robot, but development of the social skills for the students. Robert Greenleaf asks a challenging question. Do those served grow as persons? Do they become healthier, wiser, freer, and more autonomous? During this project, I observed measurable growth. Students who initially hesitated to touch wiring or speak up began independently testing components. They moved from asking, "Can you fix this?" to saying, "Let's try this instead." That shift reflects autonomy. I also saw increased collaboration and patience. Rather than blaming one another when something failed, they began troubleshooting together. Greenleaf's test is difficult because growth is not always visible immediately. However, in this case, I saw evidence that students became more confident, self-directed during this service experience. Greenleaf also asked us to consider the least privileged. In this context, that includes students who lack strong academic confidence or support systems at home. Some students entered the program believing they were not good at school. When a robot malfunctioned, frustration was immediate. Instead of reinforcing that frustration, I reframed failure as data. I reminded them that engineers expect failure as part of innovation. Failure happens in life. Over time, I saw students detach their identity from mistakes. They began viewing challenges as solvable rather than personal shortcomings. Servant leadership protects dignity while promoting growth. Van der Rampendijk 2011. I believe this experience contributed to both skill building and personal belief building. I found that there were several servant leadership skills practiced intentionally. First, listening. I allowed students to fully explain their thinking before offering input. Second, empathy. When frustration surfaced, which they did, I acknowledged it rather than dismissing it. Third, stewardship. I used my time strategically, focusing attention on students who needed encouragement most. Fourth, accountability. I held students responsible for completing tasks and contributing to the team. Research shows that servant leadership behaviors increase trust, engagement. Eve, 2019. I saw that students were more willing to take risks and attempt solutions because they felt supported rather than judged. While I demonstrated several strengths, this experience also revealed areas of growth. I tend to step in quickly when I see struggle. However, growth often happens in struggle. I need to continue developing patience and restraint, allowing students to wrestle with problems longer before intervening. I also want to delegate more leadership to student captains so the program becomes increasingly student-led. Servant leadership is about creating future leaders, not dependency. This project reminded me that empowerment requires intentional space. T.W. Lewis describes philanthropy through the 4 W's: wealth, work, wisdom, and witness. In this service project, I primarily contributed work, my time and effort, and wisdom, my technical knowledge and experience. I almost modeled witness through integrity and perseverance in how I interacted with students. Christian philanthropy is not limited to financial giving. It is stewardship of influence and ability. My contribution was relational and educational. By investing in students' growth, I practiced philanthropy that aligned with servant leadership principles. This project reinforces how deeply leadership is tied to values and beliefs. My value of integrity shaped my consistency. My belief in stewardship shaped how I used my influence, and my commitment to compassion shaped my patience. When leadership actions align with internal beliefs, service becomes identity-based rather than recognition-based. Servant leadership emerges from character. Greenleaf, 1977. I was not serving to fulfill an assignment requirement. I was serving because I love math and science and deeply care for the children of my community, as well as it aligns with who I believe I am called to be as a leader.